What's up, everybody?
What's up? What's up? What's up? How you doing, Bernadine?
What's up, NIC? I am doing well. It's Tuesday. I don't know. For some reason, I feel really tired today, but also like in up and up spirits because daylight savings is gonna come, even though it means we lose an hour, but that means that we see more sunny days.
Exactly.
And it's just warmer. Like this week is gonna be warmer. Like tomorrow, today wasn't that bad.
Hi on Thursday.
What'd you say?
The 65 on Thursday.
Everyone is gonna get COVID in Boston on Thursday.
Yo, you know the funny thing? I was like,
You know how that goes.
I should go out. I should go out somewhere. Let's go to a restaurant or do something. And I was like, you know what?
Everyone's gonna do.
Everybody's gonna do the same thing.
Yep.
My butt at home.
Yep.
Everybody's gonna do the same thing.
It's gonna happen because it's like we haven't seen such warm days in a while. You know what I mean? It's just like
Exactly.
city life in Boston.
Yeah, that's always like the funny thing I always find funny is every year when spring comes around, it's like people don't know what warm weather is like. It's like we forget it over the course of the winter. So it's like, oh my God.
It's wild. You know what's gonna happen? People are gonna call out of work on Thursday. You're gonna drive on the highway at random hours, and there's gonna be bumper to bumper traffic. You're gonna go everywhere and anywhere, and there's gonna be lines. I mean, it's going to be an episode. So I'm sitting here like just ready, watching and waiting because it's gonna be real.
Yeah, so
it's gonna be real.
But how are you doing?
I'd say other than tired, I feel good. I just started going back to the gym again. It's been, we talk about COVID-19. I gained COVID-25 during this time. I feel like I put on an additional like 25 pounds. It's not a feeling. I think that's what the scale said too. So that's just been tough.
I'm staying away from that scale.
Yeah. So I'm like, that's been tough, but I'm happy to be in a position now where I'm like, okay, back at it. You know, and I think that spring is just a better time for me in general because it's sunnier, it's warmer, you know, like I'm just more energized. And then I'm also like, ooh, summertime is like 3 months from now. I gotta get ready, gotta hit the beach, you gotta feel good, you know. So how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
I was gonna say, I was like, also it's been like a full year since we've been on shutdown. Like we're getting to that point. Literally shut down in a couple of weeks, you know. So I'm like, we've really been here for a year, almost.
I know. No, I'm doing great. I can't complain. Just living life, working, keeping myself busy during the day, and then I've been trying to read more. So I've been reading like a lot of articles. I actually just got I know I've heard bad reviews about it, but I got the follow-up to The Coldest Winter.
Okay.
I purchased that, and actually my wife got me the book from Candace McDuffie about the rappers. I got to talk about that. I started reading it. I was like, whoa. But, we're going to leave that at that.
That's awesome.
There's some people that I thought would have been on there. I was like, whoa, this person didn't make it. Like, there was one person that didn't make it on that list. But I think we need to get her perception. We'll probably have to bring you on, Candace, and talk about that book. But that was an awesome read so far. I've been enjoying that and just living life, man. I can't
living life. I'm like, life is something to be lived, especially again, given this time and this climate. I'm like, as always, we love to hit our listeners and our viewers with the week that was, as far as like, just updating people on some on and popping news and information. I think I'd go backwards, I'd say, with like local news because it's just tragic, right? Like the highlight, not even the highlight, but I say like one of the most significant updates that just took place was the release of Harry and Meghan's interview that went on primetime television with Oprah. Did you get to watch it at all? Or what are your thoughts?
I didn't watch it when it went live. I watched highlights of it yesterday, and I was just like, I'm not shocked or surprised by what she said, because everything that she's saying is literally what Diana said 20 years ago. Like, they're controlling. They only care about their image. They don't care about your mental health. They don't care. It's like, it's a different lifestyle for them. And everybody that says that's gone into it, that's come from the outside and gone into it, they're like, it's a different beast. And the racial tones and everything that happened, I'm like, do you see who you're dealing with? You have the palace. And I think one of the things that she kept saying, and I think people should take it with a grain of salt, is basically it's the people that are responsible behind the scene that are doing a lot of these things. So it's not like Queen directly or anything like that. Even she's like, the Queen has been great. She's been nice. She's been very welcoming. But it's everybody else behind the scene. And those are the people that are trying to control your life and tell you what to do and everything. So I wasn't shocked by it, but I think it was something that's much needed, that needed to be said. And to have it happen, I think they said it was like 20 years to the day when Diana had her interview, that interview aired, like, or same month or time frame. So that was pretty.
I'd imagine it was intentional, right? It's marketing, it sells, it's real. I think that the sales part aside, right? So like you have, for those of you who don't know, so Meghan and Harry Harry is the prince, part of the Buckingham Palace, is living in the was in the Buckingham Palace with his family, married Meghan Markle, who is a biracial woman of color. They married in May 19, 2018, and have since had to remove themselves from Buckingham Palace. Meghan has experienced a lot of racial trauma, a lot of discrimination, again, as NIC said, right? Not necessarily from the Queen herself, but from people on the team. And I think what broke my heart is, and I watched the video in clips, right? And was able to read the transcripts and things. You know, I think that part of what stood out to me is that Meghan is 39 years old and she's talking about having to disclose to her husband, that she had thoughts of killing herself and really wanted to commit suicide. Mind you, she's a mom, right? But again, you're having these feelings, you're having these emotions because you feel inadequate, because you feel inferior, and because you've been made to feel that, right? So she doesn't feel that. She was fine beforehand. She thought she found her literal Prince Charming, no pun intended. And it came with so much turmoil and so much challenge. And like you said, and I'm not surprised. It's the world we live in, right? So here we are with a woman of color in a position, if you will, that's super high and almighty. And at the same time, she doesn't carry that. She doesn't carry life that way, right? She's not an arrogant person. She doesn't feel entitled or anything. She's about the community. She's about the people. And I think that she took on that role with grace. And to see that she's still in this position, I think, again, given since COVID took place in 2020 has just been quite the year. And I think that these racial infrastructures and dynamics have just shown themselves to be reality in so many ways. I mean, again, even in the UK, y'all, like London got its issues. And so if somebody thinks that it's just for some people, it's not for everybody, or it's just America, or it's not like that in other places. I mean, truth be told, everybody has these issues. Everybody has those challenges. It's like, what are we looking to do about it? Right. So whether we're in the United States of America, whether we're outside the United States of America, classism plays a difference, race plays a difference, gender norms plays a difference. And I think what's beautiful for me, in my opinion, is that Meghan and Harry formed a union in this, right? So like times, like I can only imagine what it's like for Harry, who has a responsibility, a bloodline, a lineage to honor, but also like the love of his life to protect, you know?
That's one of the biggest thing that I took away from too. Like you could tell how much it took for Harry to actually break away from that lifestyle, to say, you know what? My wife, my kids, my family that I'm building and I want a future for is more important than everything else that comes with this, than my history, my family. At one point, he's like, his father stopped taking his calls and everything. So it just shows you the level that it got to, for your own father to stop talking to you for considerable amount of times. The way he pointed it out is great. And then shout out to Oprah too. You know, I forgot how good of an interviewer Oprah is. Like the way she just,
and her poise, her calmness. She's like,
exactly, the reactions. It was like perfect. Yeah. The questions. I feel like the flow of it and everything was pretty great for it. But no, it really, I really applaud him. I applaud both of them for sticking up, because you're going against an industry. Like you're going against a Goliath.
I mean, when we talk about doing it for the culture, like that is the culture. Like that is exactly. You know what I mean? So it's just like
yeah. So they're taking a lot of risk. And then, you know, they said like Tyler Perry took them in when they left. So shout out to Tyler Perry. So a lot of behind the scene things had to happen to get them where they are today. And they're expecting another child. They're expecting a daughter, which is great and beautiful. And you know, they were able to, it shows you that you can always get out. And I think one of the themes that I got from it also was that, you know, this man, he decided to say, you know what, I'm just going to take the leap. I'm going to do this. I don't know what's going to happen in 2 months. I don't know what's going to happen in a year. but I'm going to do this because it's gonna help my life and help my family, help my wife. Took that, like I said, had his mom's money, didn't have any other money. His mom's money. She was a actress, so she probably had some money, hopefully saved up, so they were able to start their life together. But they didn't really have a job. They didn't have any income coming. Their security got cut off and everything. So that really surprised me. And then, about the skin, the question about asking about how dark the kid is going to be, I was like, wow. Like, it just shows you, like you said, everywhere. It's not just
everywhere. I mean, folks, we're talking about a royal family.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, and literally a royal family. Like, that's what that is, what that element of life is. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm proud of them because what they did is super courageous. And, and I see you said anybody can get out. I think that I don't necessarily know if anybody can get out of any situation, but I think that what this is showing us is that there's hope to get out. If you ever feel helpless, if you ever feel like it's not possible, like, I want you all to know that somebody was able to do it. And yes, they're celebrities and in their own right, they have access. But my hope is that if you're ever in a position where you really, truly do feel stuck, that you do tap into resources and share your truth with people. Because again, I mean, as an older woman, she's sharing that she's dealt with suicidal ideations because of circumstances, right? And again, knowing what she has to lose and what was on the table and who she was. And, I think that that's a very serious element of life. So Oprah, the team, everyone who's part of that, Meghan Markle, Prince Harry, thank you all for sharing your truths with the world. Because again, like, this is literally how we change the world, right? Because people only see the end results, but not enough people see the journey. And I think that they shared very much part of their journey to get to where they are with the world. So thank you. I'd say on a lighter note, with the royalties and the ways of the world, I think I'd bring in the conversation about Coming to America. The 2 is the number 2, right? Where it's just like the sequel of Coming to America. And I see, did you get to watch it yet?
Yes, I did. I watched it on the first day, actually. Sat down and I made it a Friday night event, had my popcorn ready, got excited. And then the first 30 minutes, almost turned me off to it. I was like, what the? It was like over the top. It was just like, I felt like I was just watching like a comedy skit. That's literally what I felt like. I felt like I was watching. I was like, okay, I know they're trying to be funny, but it's not funny. And they're just over the top with it. All the singers coming out and all of that. But then when it slowed down and the story started to pick up and you got to see the acting and everybody doing their thing, I think it made it a much better movie. A lot of people complaining about the son. They're saying, oh, they wish somebody else had played his role, but I didn't mind him too much. And then I think overall, Coming to America was such like a classic. There's
the original.
Yeah, the original. There's no way you can really top that. Like, it's very hard, very, very hard that you can top something like that. But I think, they did decent and it was good. And that's what you want from a sequel. Something to be good that you can be like, all right, would I watch it like as many times I watched Coming to America, the original? Most likely not, but we'll see.
So I have a different opinion. I thought it was terrible. I watched it and I was like, what is this? Because Coming to America, the original, was such a classic. And even when they had the moment in this, where Lavelle and the girl, the woman who was his barber, were in the fields, like in the yard, and then she was just like, they were talking about like culture and American culture and like what they like, and they're like, sequels are just never. I mean, it's just like just because something you should do it again. I was like, oh, the irony! I see what they did there. Still terrible. I think that this movie was a miss. I think that it hurts me to say that it was not the best movie because I really loved, again, Coming to America, right? And so you would want the sequel to be just as good. Like, I think about The Best Man and then The Best Man Holiday. I think The Best Man Holiday was a sequel to The Best Man, but still a powerful movie within itself.
Exactly.
And then I'm like, and I watched Coming to America, the sequel, and it's supposed to play off of the first one, but so poorly done to me. Like, it was cool to see a lot of like some hitter, like to see a lot of the original cast come back. I think the way they brought the original cast was very, 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 very creative, right? I loved it. I'm like, you saw James Earl Jones. I'm so happy he's still alive and kicking it to be here. Of course, like Eddie Murphy.
I know, but this scene confused me. I was like,
yeah, I'm like, that's amazing. Wesley Snipes did his thing. I think as an like he did his thing.
Yeah, he did
Arsenio Hall, always good to see him. You know, when they had like Leslie Jones in there, I thought that was funny. Lavelle's mom
did her thing too. Like she still looked good for her age. I was like, oh,
yeah, it was good. John Amos, you know, for the I think his conversation about the McFlurby. I don't know. It was just interesting. You know, I did love the fact that they had like Michael Blackson in there because he's a hella funny comedian. Rotami in there. You know, so like they definitely brought in a lot of like African artists, which was cool. But at the same time, I'm like, what is going on? And like Tiana Taylor was, I didn't even really. It wasn't until the very end when Tiana was just like, whatever you like, I like, whatever you want to do, I want to do. Did I even understand what the role of her was? I was just like, what is happening? I just wasn't. I wasn't into it. You know, Davido was in there. I just wasn't. Again, it was star-studded for sure. I think what I appreciated was that it was culturally. It crossed over culturally, right? Within the African culture, the American culture, playing on New York. I mean, Rick Ross's house was the mansion.
Yeah.
If y'all don't know, I'm like his house in Atlanta. You know, I'm like that house was massive, like 235 acres of land with 109 rooms. So Rick Ross, I don't even know what you're doing to live in there. Rick Ross was also in the movie. I don't know what you do to be.
Hey,
I don't know.
Yes, the wing stops. All the lemon pepper wings.
That's
what got him in the house.
That's what I mean. Okay, that's what I'm like. It's crazy. His house is also the former home of a boxing legend, Evander Holyfield.
Yeah,
but I'm looking. I'm like, his house really looked like a whole castle, and I'm like,
expanded on it though compared to what it was originally when he got
he what
land. He expanded on it. Like it was smaller.
Oh wow,
got more land and everything around it. So yeah,
that's wild. But I say all that to say, folks, have your own opinions. Watch the movie. Don't listen to us. I always think, even when I hear critics or even when I hear people speak highly of a movie, it's best to watch your own opinion. The movie was initially released December 20th, 2020, but was released on Amazon Prime, which is why everyone's talking about it right now. March 5th, 2021, to give everybody access to watch it. So if you don't have Amazon Prime, I'd say definitely check it out. It's a sequel to a classic, so with that alone, you owe it to yourself. But Black Panther was better than this. So.
I knew you were going to bring up Black Panther. In other pop culture news, Swizz Beatz and Timbaland, I'm kind of upset about this, but they sold their Versus, I would say, idea and show to a Triller Network, their competitor to TikTok out there. So not only did they get paid, but also everybody that's participated, the 43 creatives and musicians that's been on the show since its old inception, also got paid off this deal. So, which is pretty neat. But he sold that. Apparently, they're supposed to work together to make it a bigger event, to make it a little bit more professional. So we'll see what they do with Versus in the future. And then in sports news, your man Dak Prescott got paid. He signed a 4-year, $160 million contract with the Dallas Cowboys. You still know Dak was the quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. He got hurt last year, and he was out of contract. So he had to sign a deal this year, and it's one of the largest guaranteed ever. It's $95 million of that is guaranteed, and he got a $66 million bonus. So Dak, I'm your cousin, bro. What's up?
Right. I'm like, so you want babysitters?
You know what I'm saying? I'll be the truth man. That's all I'll be. I always tell people.
I'm like, help me pour into my dreams. No, stuff. That's amazing. I'm like, listen, to each their own. I'm always just like, why do you get so much money for throwing the ball? But whatever.
They're bringing a lot of money, so they got to get paid. They got to be well compensated. They're bringing in billions of dollars a year. So $200 million, that's not that much, 4 or 5 years or 4 years. For them.
See what happens. But that's it, folks, with regards to the week that was. Some highlights for pop culture, some highlights for sports, and of course highlights for local news. So continue to rock with us every time we're on air, and we update you all on what's been happening in the world from the last time we were here together. So, but we are slowly transitioning into our time, and I see you ready to bring in our guest.
Yes. Let me add him. Hello.
Oh, hey.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing wonderful. How are y'all?
Good, good. So, just gonna introduce you real quick, Derrick, to our collective. So, thank you so much, collective, for always rocking with us. As you all know, we always have a segment of our show where we highlight a celebrity guest, where we really take the time to identify folks who are doing great work in the greater Boston community, but don't always get a lot of attention. Although, Derrick, I think you get a lot of attention, which is awesome. But also phenomenal work in our community, but that does not mean you do not need to be celebrated and highlighted and allow us to express level of gratitude for your work and your contributions to society. So, for those of you who don't know, we have Derrick Young Jr. Derrick Young Jr. is a champion for social justice and equity. He's the co-founder and executive director of Leadership Brainery, a nonprofit organization addressing unequal access to advanced education and workforce leadership opportunities for minoritized communities. Derrick's commitment to fostering equity stems back earlier than he remembers. It was heightened in college when he received acceptance into the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention undergraduate public health scholars program. He learned that we must search fully upstream. We must search fully upstream to find what is causing our most vast societal inequities. He identifies systemic restrictions to accessing adequate information, education, and opportunities as the main factors. Derrick has earned his master's in public health degree with a health services management and policy concentration from Tufts University School of Medicine and his BA in psychology from Grambling State University. He also earned his certificate in disruptive strategy from Harvard Business School. Y'all, when I tell you Derrick is doing it, and y'all know when it comes to the world of education, I'm all for it. So, yeah. Derrick, thank you. Derrick, say hi to the people.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be on the show. I'm excited for whatever comes to me this evening.
I don't know if you want to say that.
Look, we're gonna see. We're gonna see. No,
yes, we're gonna have a conversation.
Privilege. Yes, definitely a privilege to be able to share all the work that me and my team are doing in the community and in our society.
That's it. Thank you so much. I'm going to start with NIC, who's going to take it away with our first question and hoping to have a conversation.
Of course, awesome. Of course. So, Derrick, I wanted to kind of bring it back. And when you joined the CDC, right, how did that open up your eyes? I know you talked about there's some systemic restrictions that Black and brown people suffer. What did that show you by joining the CDC?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. I don't think I ever really answered it for anybody. So, no, I think when I first went into college, I'm a first generation, first my family to graduate college. And my internship with the CDC opened up my perspective to the different fields that we can go in, and definitely public health, most in depth. So when I went into college, I was a nursing major. Most folks, when we think about going into healthcare, it's like, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a nurse, I want to be, social work, something like that. And then when I went to Grambling, I got exposed to public health, and it was just like, what's this? What's this area? And it's all around us. Everything that's going on with us all day is public health. And I think most people have a better understanding now since we had the pandemic and people just hear public health all day. But it's like, what can we do to really prevent things from happening? And we know as Black folks, as people of color, most things that are out there oppress us. Most things affect us worse. And so going to the CDC, being able to be on the campus in Atlanta, and then I spent 3 months at the University of Michigan School of Public Health studying with them. I was able to learn a lot about what's really causing these issues in our communities. And before that, I really didn't have that lens. I knew things were happening. I knew I wanted to fix it, but I didn't know how systemic it was. And so being able to go to the CDC really opened up my eyes to that. And from that moment, I've been focusing on systemic issues, like, what are all the things that we can be doing to prevent these things from happening down the stream. And of course, like, the bio just said, I really related that to education. Most things, information injustice. My partner, Jonathan, likes to say information injustice because most things that happen in our society is because we are restricted from information, whether that is in healthcare, being able to get quality resources, whether that's K through 12, having quality resources in our schools, having prepared teachers who've gotten certain quality education to really be able to give us that equal education like other communities. It all stemmed back to kind of that information and justice and peace. So I think going to the CDC really opened up my eyes to that.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And as you said, right, like healthcare is something that is at our forefront now more than ever, I would say, in my lifetime anyway, because of what's going on with the pandemic. I'd also say because of what's going on with the shot, right? And so like the racial disparities there versus like with the people who are trusting our healthcare system and folks who are not. And we understand that there's a history behind that, right? Where people of color were taken advantage of in our healthcare industry. And now here we have an opportunity to take a shot, but people are skeptical, right? And so people need to understand that systemic injustice and information injustice that we talk about really carries on and impacts our communities far greatly than one could ever imagine. Like you said, people of color more disproportionately than others. With that being said, you know, healthcare is important, but you also prioritize education, right? And so your work initially focused on the Codman Square community, one that I know personally is heavily populated by people of color, those who are part of the lower socioeconomic bracket. Can you talk to us a little bit about why that population was the population you chose to focus on, and like why it's necessary for us to give the historically marginalized group the attention and access to the resources?
Yeah, most definitely. So I was actually reached out by someone to come join Codman Square right after I graduated Tufts. And, you know, I live in Brighton, which y'all know is complete opposite from Dorchester. And I'm originally from Kansas City, Missouri, born in Chicago, went to school in Louisiana at Grambling. And so when I came up here to Boston to go to school, my partner was at BU. And so we were kind of like in this area of Brighton and kind of just landed here. But being the person I am, you know, I'm like, okay, well, I definitely need to be engaged in my community where my folks are. And so, you know, I would spend a lot of time over in Dorchester, Roxbury. And so when the chance came up to work at Codman Square, I was like, this is the perfect opportunity for me to work with my community. And so I worked on a program called Dorchester Knows. It goes back to that information piece. And it was based off a campaign in New York called the Bronx Knows, and it was an HIV and AIDS testing campaign. And so we know when it comes to infectious disease that, you know, Black and brown folks have the highest rates, not because of any type of recklessness, but again, lack of information, lack of contraceptions, lack of healthcare access. And so did a huge information campaign of how do we beat the stigma? You know, how do we go into areas like Dorchester and Roxbury and get Dorchester to know, you know, what this disease is about, what this virus is about. And we had a wonderful job doing different things like talent shows and events in the parking lot with different local stores to really normalize how we deliver this information and know that we can have fun and just talk about healthcare. And when you talk about things like infectious disease and HIV and AIDS, it's not this thing that we need to run away from, but it is something that's affecting a lot of people in our community. Don't start talking about it, we're going to continue to be affected by it. And so we did the huge information push, you know, did nice little campaigns, posted flyers all around the neighborhood. But then we did testing too. And so mobile testing, we would go around the community, set up our mobile van and just do testing in the community. And it was pretty confidential. So, you know, it was discreet. You know, they would just come in the van, get tested, get their results back. And we were able to, I feel like we were able to do a lot of great change in the area for the time being. It was a short-term grant. So again, very systemic because things like this need to really stay in our communities, not just be something that the CDC or some other organization fund for 2 years. And then, you know, it's done when we've been going through this issue for 30 years now. And it's going to take much longer for us to fix it in our communities. And so, you know, even when it comes to like the funding and how are we being prioritized and okay. So can y'all still hear me good? Maybe we can like
I can take that out after.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, if you can take it out, then that's cool. All right. And so even how we are being prioritized in research funding is really critical because many times when it do come to places like Common Square Health Center, we are the last on the totem pole to get research dollars, the last on the totem pole to get different folks to come do different grant projects. And so it was a great opportunity to work at Common. I would say that we do have a lot of work to do in our communities, definitely our local health centers, to increase the quality, to treat our customers better. That's one thing that I really tried to work with Common around more is customer service. But I feel like when it comes to how we treat our own community, sometimes we can embody a lot of that internalized racism and not much love and care for our own community. And so it was a great opportunity. Anytime I have the chance to go back to Common, I definitely take advantage of it.
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Like that. One of the things I really wanted to focus on is just saying, how receptive was that community when you started, especially a program like that has to do with HIV, that's very private and personal. Did you see that they were open to it as far as the community to come in, getting tested, or were they more apprehensive? Like, I don't really want to do that.
Yeah, it's definitely some hesitation. I mean, and that's across the board, like, across the whole world when it comes to infectious disease. I think it's the stigma that we got to continue to beat. Not only when it comes to HIV, but when it comes to all diseases and all viruses. I mean, even like we're seeing right now with COVID-19, I think because it wasn't a virus that was associated with any type of sex or that, impacted like already marginalized groups like the LGBTQ community, like HIV/AIDS does, then we got over that stigma hurdle a little bit quicker with the virus itself. But definitely the hesitation around HIV and AIDS when it's deemed as a gay disease, a lot of people don't want to go get tested around it. When it's really like even nowadays are Black women that's really being impacted by HIV and AIDS disproportionately than a lot of other groups. And so we're trying to more so normalize how do we just do HIV and AIDS testing just like you would do a cancer screening or a regular checkup, just so you can be cautious around your own health and not think, well, I would know if I had something. Like COVID, you just don't. Sometimes people get sick, sometimes they don't, and then next thing you know, it's just I'm in the hospital dying. But if I would have caught it 5 years ago just by getting a quick test, then I would have been able to take care of myself.
Right, absolutely. Thank you so much for that insight. I think Derrick, you also mentioned that internalized racism that the historically marginalized population is also very much a victim of, right? So not necessarily treating each other with like love and respect, I would even say oftentimes in all of the work that you're doing, right? Education and our healthcare together, right? What has been your strategy in getting people who do not prioritize the historically marginalized population to prioritize those people? And I would say, in addition to that, how have you helped or how do you encourage those who are historically marginalized to pour into themselves and to invest in their own healthcare and in their own education system or education injustices? Address that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, one thing that we do at the Leadership Brainery is really try to heighten cultural wealth. And I think that's something that more people need to think about more often is what do we bring to the table at the end of the day? What do our community and our background and things that we go through every day, how does that make us as competitive or even more competitive as some of our counterparts that we're always comparing ourselves to? And so
is that in your house or can they?
It's actually.
I was like, you have to leave. I was like, I don't want you to hurry it.
Yeah, no, it goes off like literally maybe like once a month. And so my just want to make sure like everything okay. So everything good. So hopefully we can cut that out because if not, we're gonna have to do it all. Okay. All right. But yeah, no. So back to cultural wealth. I think a lot of times when we think about what do we bring to the table, some folks don't quite think about their everyday experiences, like having to navigate multiple jobs or having to take care of other family members, and what those things really add value and add skills to what you have to offer when it comes to different schools, when it comes to the workforce, or say if English is not your first language, you know, some people can find that more intimidating and shy away from sharing that with folks, when it can really be valuable that you speak English in this other language.
Right.
Okay, so this is getting loud, y'all. So I'm like so sorry because so are we live right now, right? So
we live. It's okay. Just keep going. I just want to make sure you're okay. I'm like, does he need to leave? Like, is his life in jeopardy right now?
Yeah, hold on. Let me just.
Hey, that's what happens in the city.
5 seconds.
No problem.
Go ahead. I promise. Hey, folks who are tuning in, like, honestly, this is what live is all about. Like, things are
exactly.
This is what happens.
You can't control it. It's what happens when you live in the city.
Seriously.
All right. So we good. Okay, they just, I hear them outside. They didn't go hard no more. So hopefully it goes off in a second. So we'll keep going. All right. So again, y'all, we're going to continue to start over. Cultural wealth and what you bring.
This is great.
Cultural wealth and what you bring to the table. And so, you know, we always just really make sure when it comes to our communities that we know that we do bring value, and opposed to listening to the larger society and what they continue to tell us about ourselves. We really internalize a lot of that, a lot of those issues, a lot of that racism. And so, and ask me your question again.
It's okay. It's just, how do we hold our historically marginalized population accountable to really address the challenges that they're facing with within healthcare disparities and education? But then also, how do we get white folk really to care about us and to prioritize the historically marginalized population as well? Like, how do you do that work?
All right. So real quick, I am gonna have to leave.
Okay.
So can I?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna wrap it up, and then can I call back when I get outside?
Yeah. You can do that.
Okay.
You can do that if you like.
All right. So go ahead and chat it up for a second, and I'm gonna call y'all in a few minutes.
All right.
All right.
Just come back. All right. Bye. Y'all, this was our first experience in this with the pandemic. As you all can see in our TUC 2.0 version, when we are doing our live recordings, anything can really happen, right? And so it's important for us to stay flexible, and it's important for us to be very aware. I know Derrick is just like, I did not expect this. We did not expect this. But life happens. I'm hoping he's safe. That's like I said. Like,
I know, that was the thing. I'm like, is that his house? I'm like, it sounds like a car, but whatever.
I thought it was a car at first, and then it just never went away.
I know. So hopefully he's safe and he'll get back on. We'll give him a few minutes. But there's a lot of topics out there, Bernadine, that we can talk about in the meantime. One of the things, I guess, with the public schools opening back up, and I know that's something that, you know, you are very well versed in. So what is going on with that? What parents have to look forward to, or I would say look forward to. When is that going to happen?
What I would say is, while I'm well versed in it with regards to education, nothing is still definite, right? Because like, you have to think, between now and September, that's March to April, May, June, July, August, September. So we still have 6 months. We don't know what the summer is going to look like. People are projecting another wave of the pandemic in the following winter season, just because it's just the season for that.
Yeah.
You know, and so right now what we're focusing on is making sure our students are safe, making sure our teachers still feel safe, making sure our administration feels safe. And so folks are receiving an opportunity to get tested if they'd like, to receive the vaccine if they'd like, which I think is super helpful as we're looking to decrease these numbers, particularly for our school leaders who are constantly in these buildings with families and children. You know, I think the hybrid model is still really important, right? That balance of students having face-to-face time at school, but then also still being able to be safe at home. I think part of the challenge is, once you're exposed to somebody who tested positive, it's almost like you have to remove everybody who was exposed, right? To decrease spreading. And so I think that that's just really, really challenging at this time. But I think when I think about BPS, I also think about Boston's response. I think Boston is doing its best, all things considered. Um, I do want people to, somebody mentioned to me the other day, like, for the historically marginalized population, they're targeting folks like community centers in historically marginalized groups are being targeted as far as like or being selected as places to have the vaccine be accessible, and have posed that as a challenge. They're just like, listen, that's not okay, because people of color should be able to go anywhere to get the vaccines, not just in these like isolated places. I think for me, I fall on the fence, because I think part of it is, part of the feedback all the time is, if you want to support people in the communities, bring things to the community. And so that's what you're doing that way, right? But then on the other hand, if you're in a position where bringing these shots and the vaccines into the community means that you're giving people different vaccines, or vaccines that are not going to help them, or a placebo effect, right? They think they're getting the vaccine, they're not. Like, if we're using this as an opportunity to again mistreat historically marginalized folks, like, seriously, racism and discrimination is like terrible. But again, if we're creating a system and a pipeline where we're truly making it accessible and are saying, hey, to the individual in Hyde Park, you don't have to drive all the way to Boston Medical. Here, let's cut your commute in half. Maybe that's helpful, right? So I just hope ethically people aren't separating different locations. Oh, this is for the Black people, so they don't need to get the best version of this shot.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I've been hearing too. They're saying that because of these variant and different versions of COVID that are spreading now and spreading much faster, they're thinking that even people that have been taking shots already, you're most likely going to have to take a booster to help with this. I know the CDC the other day came out and said that, oh, okay, if your household, you've taken it, you can go out in public, you can interact with other people that have taken the shot. And that will help with bringing the numbers down, because then the both of you being vaccinated, it helps reduce that chance of both of you passing it on to each other and everything like that. So hopefully that will help, because that's a good sign to hear the CDC come out and say that. Now you're like, okay, for the teachers that were scared about going back, hey, I got vaccinated. But now you have to do with the kids. Are you going to vaccinate those kids? Because if you vaccinate just the teachers and the kids are not vaccinated, it's kind of like, okay, we are doing just the kids, which are more in numbers than the teachers. So if you get sick, because we've known kids can get sick. They say, oh, it may not be as bad as an adult, but kids can get sick and spread it. And you're in these class. Like I was listening to an interview the other day with the new, oh my God, Secretary for Public Education. I forgot what that Biden just chose. And he was like, oh, you know what? We can try to do schooling on the outside and everything. I'm like, bro, do you realize half the United States live in a cold climate? So you're going to do classes outside when it's in September? How's that going to work? And even if it was the summer, nobody wants to sit in the sun for like 4 or 5 hours straight trying to learn class and everything, even if they're under a tent or anything like that. How are you going to spread it? Are you going to have to expand these schools and build more schools? Because you can't have 20 kids in a class. The average class size is between 20 to 30 kids, right? If like, I don't know, I remember back in my day, I used to have about 15 to 20 kids in my class, each class. So I don't think it changed too much.
No.
How are you going to protect them? Are you going to put everybody in their own little cubicle and everything all day? It kind of like, but, and I get the part about learning from home. Every parent that I've spoken to is like, it is not working. We can't. It's like every parent has told me, especially for younger kids, the 5-year-olds, the 7-year-olds, it's like we're teaching them ourselves, because a lot of the times you'll see the kid won't be paying attention. They have short attention spans already. And now you're telling them to look at a screen for 5-6 hours a day. And then one of the numbers that came out recently was talking about how the number of kids that are not signing on a daily basis has increased over the months, because people will think, oh, the parents will think, oh, they're signed on or whatever. The kid will be in their room playing video games, or they'll sign on, they'll do everything, and you don't see them on camera. They're not paying attention. But they're like, oh, yeah, I signed on. The parent's like, oh, they're signed on. They're all set. Parent goes to work. Whether they're working in the house, they might be working in another room or something like that. You don't have the time to sit and stay on top of that child all the time. that number has risen and skyrocketed, especially places like New York and some of the larger cities like LA. That's why they're pushing in Texas. That's why they're pushing for the school to open back up, because the teacher was saying, these kids are not paying attention. Half of them are not even attending. Or if they attend, they'll come in for an hour and leave for the rest of the day. And you can't get a hold of them, or you'll get a hold of them with a parent. The parent's like, bro, they're on. And the kid's like, yeah, mom, I'm on. See? And then once they leave the room, they jump back off or go somewhere else. So I know it's difficult, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I feel like there's no right answer for this. It's like we're all.
No, I mean, I think we've been there from the beginning. From the beginning, it's never been a right answer.
Yeah.
From the beginning, it's been playing it by ear. From the beginning, it's been like you have to be flexible. From the beginning, it's just determining again like what can or can't be done. I think at this time, I'm thinking about what is the summer in Boston going to be, because I actually really like our city in the summer. I think in the summer, I love outside dining. Mm-hmm. I loved our gatherings. I loved our people of color. I loved our turn-ups. I loved our just the ability to host. And so I think about that, and I'm like, while I think about our school system, while I think about our kids in the fall and in the spring, I also wonder what they're going to do in the summers, right? Because this is going to be a second summer where, you know, the enrichment gap could also continue to increase, right? So like even if, you know, to the students you're talking about where they're not locking on anymore, that's a lack of engagement, right? They're not feeling like, yes, it's accountability, but it's also like they're not interested, right? They're not necessarily being brought into the conversation. And it's so easy to unplug when life is all around you, right? And so I think about that, and I think about how the summers and summer enrichment programs allow for the reading and math gaps to that continues to widen every summer to slightly decrease, just from having human to human interaction, somewhere to go, people to talk to, people to check in with. And now I just don't necessarily know what that's going to look like again for another summer, right? So it's not even just fun and socializing as an adult, it's thinking about our children, like who is in their community, you know, like what does that space look like? You know, I think about this Girlhood to Sisterhood Academy that I put on last summer. Will I be bringing it back again? It's still too early to tell because I don't know what the city of Boston is going to look like for the summer. But, you know, I think these 2 years are prime time when it comes to understanding how this is going to impact the education system and socialization of our students moving forward. Yeah. And that is what I'm looking to understand. Like, you know, the 5-year-old or 6-year-old who was supposed to be social last year and is not socializing with other people last year or this year, the 15, 14, 13-year-old, 16-year-old, you know, possibly depending on where they are, high school student who was starting that experience at that like pivotal time in their teenage adolescent development. Like, what are they doing? The junior or senior, right, in high school who was looking to apply to college, the freshman in college, right? Like, I think about, you know, first year students in grad school programs, just everybody, like, where are we at? You know, parents who are people who are parents for the first time, right? Like, it's different to parent your child at home than in the world, like, and being comfortable. Like, are y'all ever going to be comfortable to be like, yeah, hold my baby, take my baby, right? Like, which happened before. Like, now people are going to be like, don't touch my kid.
I was already one of those people that was going to be like, who's this guy? Why you don't touch my kid?
No, but you know what I mean? Like, are people ever going to take the train the same way, where you're just sitting next to anybody? Are you going to take the bus the same way?
No.
Are you gonna go on boat cruises the same way? Like I you know, they were like, oh, Disney World sold its tickets, sold out on its tickets for next week. I was watching that on the news, and people were taking selfies in Disney World, and I'm like, Disney World used to hold like hundreds and thousands of people. Amusement parks are not about to be the same.
I know, yeah, which
is great because that means the lines are shorter. But you know,
at the same time, though, it's like I feel like I don't know. This is going to make society change, hopefully for the better. But I don't think it will change for the better because you're always going to have that gap. You're always going to have that group of people that it affects and that misses out, that it affected more. Whether it's by race, whether it's by location, there will be that group of people. We won't see it now, but I promise you 5 years, 6 years, 10 years from now, we'll look back, we're like, oh yeah, this affected Black people, or this affected people from New York or from LA or third world countries.
Right.
You know, it affected them a lot more than we thought coming out of this because whatever the reason, jobs, family, mental health. That's one of the biggest things. I heard the other day Biden is starting a study, an investigation to look into people's mental health that either had COVID, had a family member that had COVID, or knew someone that somebody passed away. Like we said, I think everybody by now has had somebody that they know of that's passed away, or a friend of a friend. Like I said, at 7 degrees of separation, you know someone that's close to you that has had somebody, a family member, passed away by now with COVID. And it's like, how does that affect them going forward? So I'm hoping with the bill that they're passing, hopefully it will help the schools, because there's a big budget in there for schools to help better educate them. But not only that, to help that technology divide. When you see certain cities and everything like that, it just doesn't, it's not the same. You can tell certain cities are just not equipped. They don't have the money to keep their kids going to school. They're having to scramble. And then you see that divide in certain communities where they didn't have internet access. People think internet access is available to everyone. It is something that not a lot of people in America have, or have a decent internet access. They might have something very basic, but you can't school on your phone all day. You can't be on your phone.
You say that, and I'm like, BPS, we spent quite a bit of time providing children and families with Macs, with iPads, so that students can learn. Mm-hmm. We spent a lot of time supporting people to get internet access. We spent a lot of time trying to figure out who's going to get the support that they need for their IEPs, who's going to get the emotional support, who's going to get the physical therapy that they need, who's going to get, the English, Derrick had mentioned earlier, folks who speak different languages, English language learners, right? Like, you learn language by doing what? Speaking the language. And so when you're not speaking the language, what are we doing, right? And how do we, again, continue to operate? And what does that new normal look like? So Celeste mentioned in the chat here that we have to mourn the loss of the life we knew and accept where we are and look at how we can move forward. Mental health is the next pandemic that's about to happen. Absolutely. Because people have gone mad. People have been frustrated. You can only look at the insides of your walls for so long. You can only look at the same person, no matter how much you love them, for so long. Mm-hmm. You can only coddle your children for so long. You can only pour into yourself for so long, where you're like, this routine is terrible. You can only you can only do your job virtually for so long. I mean, some people thrive off of dressing up. I mean, as a woman, I loved getting up and putting makeup on and putting on my heels to go out my door.
Yeah,
I have lived but it's hurt me because I'm not getting dressed. Right, everyone has been a survivor mode, Celeste. Because I haven't been getting dressed, I'm in sweatshirts and sweatpants. Right. And so those can stretch with me differently than my dress pants and my dresses. Right. So I'm not even, I've tried to put on.
That's one thing that I had to stop. I had to stop. I was like, you know what? I'm not just going to wear t-shirts at work. Let me wear a polo. I'll wear polos that I used to wear. And that's one thing I was like, oh no, this polo getting too tight on me. Nope. But that's one of the things that I had to do. Simple stuff like that kind of helped me out, because for the first couple of months, I was just, like you said, sweatpants, t-shirt. I don't care what meeting. If I was meeting with an executive, I was meeting with a client. I
tried to pack clothes to go to Tulum, Mexico for my birthday. And I was crying.
You had to go shopping.
I could. I have a closet full of clothes I can't wear. Yeah, I can't wear them.
When the world open back up, I'm probably gonna have to go shopping again because
No, when the world opens back up, this is why I'm in the gym, because I'm going to fit all that clothes, all of those clothes.
How's the gym going? Going to the gym. I wanted to go to the gym, but I'm like.
Initially, I was skeptical because I'm like, man, I don't want to have my mask on. But honestly, when you're there and you're releasing that and those endorphins and your adrenaline's going and things, you're just in the zone. I mean, I wipe things down before I use it. I wipe things down after I use it. I have to be physical. I think part of what I miss too right now is that I'm not physically walking to a car. I'm not physically walking through a building. I'm not physically going through the bus or the train stations, right? There is a physical element of day-to-day activity that we also just don't have anymore when everything is the room over. You know what I mean? The max I'm doing is going upstairs into my office or into my bedroom and quite frankly, I don't even use my office anymore because I'm like, I just would rather lounge on the couch for my work, right? And I'm like, this is terrible. Before I was like, oh, office, yeah, sit upright. Now I'm like, no.
Yeah, that's one thing I had. I have the office. I stopped using my office for a little bit just because I was like, I needed a new space, new scenery. So I do living room now. But I'm like, okay, I've been in the living room for a couple of months now. All right, let me come back down to the office. So that's one thing the one thing I think one industry that has been affected in a positive way is the real estate industry. Housing purchase has gone up by almost 30% in this past year during the pandemic, which is so crazy because people are realizing, you know what? Yeah, this little 1-bedroom apartment or this 2-bedroom apartment, I need a bigger space. I need an office. I need to be able to move and roam. And something like this happens again, I know I have the space that I can stretch. I don't have to be on top of my significant other. I don't have to be on top of my kids. Everybody has their own space. So you've seen a lot of people just either selling their condos and people moving out of the cities. So places like New York, places like LA are actually losing a lot of residents because now when you think about it, you have a lot of businesses, especially in LA and especially in all the tech sectors over in San Francisco. Housing over there is so expensive. You're looking at 1 bedroom like $2,500 when you can move and find a whole house in Texas and these other locations. So a lot of people are moving and migrating out of LA, out of the New Yorks, out of the Miamis, those bigger cities, the Chicagos, the Houstons, and moving to smaller, less populated cities that you can better afford a home. And because of that, you have customers now and employees that are realizing they're like, you know what? You can work wherever. This has made us realize somebody does not have to come into the office for you to have a meeting face to face. So it's helping some people, but I wonder how long will that last? Is it something that's going to last for the next 5 years? Or is it something, oh no, this is going to be the next 100 years unless something drastically happens to change that again and make it the new work normal. So we'll have to see. This I don't know. It's this
quite the time. I mean, I think in general it's just quite the time to be alive. It's quite the time to process. It's quite the time to navigate. I mean, even for us right now, right? Like not to bring it back too much, but we just had this time of COVID has just been one where we needed to be flexible, period. Mm-hmm. Period. The way we mourned, people couldn't mourn loved ones and go to funerals. Mm-hmm. That's is traumatic within itself. Like to not be able to physically go mourn somebody you care about because you couldn't, to not be able to travel to celebrate milestones and accomplishments, for folks who are having children, to not have your partner be able to be part of the procedure and the process with you until the very end of the road, to be examined in privacy in certain ways. Like people have to go through like serious, like for example, like cancer treatments or things like that. You can't really have people near you because if they're not the patient, they can't be in the room. Mm-hmm. Learning to be physical and mobile has looked different. Socializing, again, as we said, is different. I think that there's, as always, we say that there's definitely been some blessings and some positives in all of this as well, like you were saying for real estate. But I think that it's that catch-22, like which is better or worse for you, right? The fact that you were able to get into real estate, maybe you were able to save, maybe you're spending a lot more. I'll be honest, at the very beginning of the pandemic, I wasn't spending as much. Mm-hmm. There's nothing to do. Now I'm just home. So I'm like, Uber Eats. All right, brother. I'm like, take it. And I'm like, first of all, why am I paying $30 on this salad? Yeah. Like I will $30 on a salad will feed me for 2 weeks. Like it's not about to feed like one meal.
I actually joined Uber Eats the subscription that they have, the membership, because I was like, okay, I'm paying like $12 for delivery. In like 1 month, I'm paying like almost $100 in just delivery fees. I can pay $10 a month and not have these delivery fees and save myself.
But they've skyrocketed the fees so that they get you to do those things. I'm like, this is a game. And then you go to the restaurant yourself, right? So this is the other thing. I'm like, yo, delivery fees get you because you know what you can do is just go drive and pick it up. But you know what you're not going to do
because you're lazy.
Because you're still going to be lazy. You still going to be lazy.
There. And then you have the people that are just scared. They don't want to be in contact with anybody. So they're like, nope, I'm not going anywhere. But the same thing happened to me the other day. Like, I wanted to get a salad. And I was sitting there and I placed an order. It was salad for myself and my wife. And it came out to like $27. I was like, wait, for 2 salads? Like, are you kidding?
Meanwhile, go to BJ's, spend
That's what I did. I was
$5.
like, you know what? No, this is ridiculous. So I went. So I was like, let me go order some stuff. I went to Shaw's down the street, picked up what I needed to, and I was like, for $20, we had salads for almost a week. I was like, what the heck is this, man?
It's wild. No, but I'm like the cooking. Listen, so I'm still waiting for Celeste to bring me some fish, but I'm like cooking.
I know. I'll be seeing Celeste cook. I'll be like,
cooking was a thing in the beginning. Now I'm like between work and school, and I'm not. I want to though.
I tell myself I gotta cook at least once a week. If I can cook once a week, then I'll eat that leftover for a day, max 2. That'll be good. But I've that's one thing that I've started doing more these past few months. I'm like, you know what? Let me cook, because I realized I looked at my budget. I'm like, why am I spending all this money on like takeout literally every day? Because the takeout food, you're only going to eat it for one day. You're most likely not going to have it the next day. So every day you're spending like $40, $50 on.
It's a psyche though. It's a psyche. It's like you're getting tired now. In the beginning, it was like, ooh, this is giving me time to pick up on hobbies. This is giving me time to do a manicure and a pedicure, learn how to do my hair. Now I'm like, who's doing my hair?
Yo,
now
Celeste, we're going to have to have you come on the show and show us how to make some dishes and everything like that. That's what we're going to do.
I just need Celeste to just drop it off at my house.
See, Celeste, I'm trying to say,
help a student. No, Celeste, help a student. Help a student. Make her a meal, and I'll be more than happy to eat it. You could also bring your daughter. Maybe I could do a TikTok.
I know. Oh God.
But ladies and gentlemen, we are getting to our close. I know we had initially said that we were going to bring Derrick right back, but as you were all able to see, we had some he was experiencing some technical difficulties, not even technical difficulties, just a housing challenge. But you know, he is going to be back on air. We're going to do a TUC 2.0.2 to have him back to finish out his interview again as a live show. And given these times, these things happen. So it's unpredictable. We got to be flexible. And I see it's always great to catch up with you. Celeste, thank you for joining in and keeping us entertained and engaged with your commentary. She keeps laughing out loud every time I tell her to bring me some food, and I'm serious. So,
yeah, get him to get it.
I'm about to reach out to your husband and be like, so the food. So I'll be waiting on that, you know, so come and visit me. But Collective, it is always great to check in with you all. It's always great to have these conversations. As always, we love to highlight our celebrity guests, folks who are doing great work in the greater Boston community. We are out here. People of color are out here thriving, excelling, navigating, persisting through the pandemic, really doing what they can do. Celeste is a therapist and has been super supportive, consistently on air with her own podcast while serving clients and while being, you know, well invested in her own personal life, which I'll let her tell her story. And Celeste was actually a guest on our show a couple years back as well. So I say that to say, Boston has a support system. Boston has a network. Boston has a community. And the Collective is here to help you tap into it, whether you want to be stimulated educationally with regards to mental health, entrepreneurship, fashion, designing, marketing, politics, you name it. We talk about it, music, producing, whatever the case may be. We are here for it. We are here for you all. We talk about gender, race, sexual orientation, religion. Again, nothing is off the table here within the Collective. So as always, again, thank you all for rocking with us.
Yes, y'all. I wish tonight went differently because we were having a great conversation with Derrick, but like Bernadine said, you know, unfortunate events happen. So like always, make sure you follow us. Tell a friend to tell a friend. You can follow us at the Urban Collective Show online on Instagram. You can also follow us on Facebook at the Urban Collective Show. And on Twitter, our hashtag or our name is the UC Show 3. The UC Show 3 is our name on Twitter. So make sure to follow us. You can download our podcasts and listen to them on every platform. iTunes, Spotify, Amazon, whatever you listen to, Google, everything, it's on there. You can download that and help with supporting us. So thank you for all the support we've received. Thank you for all the guests that's come on here. And thank you for the community that we've built.
Absolutely. And as always, we love to leave you all with a motivational quote to get you through to the next week. And so in the spirit and support of all that Derrick was talking about and the work that he's doing for the community through education and through healthcare, and us persisting and even our conversations here as far as navigating life through the pandemic and our projections and our experiences thus far, I want to leave you all with a quote by Nelson Mandela, who says, "To be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others." And so on that note, go out there, be great, contribute to yourselves, but also contribute to the community at large. The world needs you, and we see you, and we support you. So it's your girl, Bernadine Truth.
It's your man, NIC.
And we'll catch you later.
See y'all next week.
Bye.